Hey, good morning. Okay, this is a quick intro to this video coming up that is pieced together over several days since the Texas ice storm of last week that shut down power for a lot of people. It's 3 ways to utilize broken branches and natural moisture retention techniques to prevent ice storm and other extreme weather impacts from worsening in the future in Central Texas and anywhere lands are droughted, without cutting, without fossil fuels, without electricity or plastics or any waste-making materials, to retain and increase the moisture containment and cycling capacity of your lands. You want your slope to favor collecting water. It's like think of an isosceles triangle, and you're always trying to get slope to hold the water as long as possible. You'll see 3 techniques in this video. We're not going to talk much about slope, although it's in here. You're going to see the prop up, you're going to see wildlife walls, and you're going to see pine straw for moisture containment around the bases of trees. If you have $60 in 60 minutes, you can do at least 2 of these things. I'm also going to talk about some silver linings from this very traumatic weather for a lot of people. One is that property protection is now slightly enhanced. Another is that these fallen materials can be used, and that'll be shown, to bring wildlife and biodiversity back to your lands. Biodiversity and wildlife need more ground cover. This is what they require. They require habitat. Another silver lining, trees are going to surge. They're going to regrow to fill the canopy gaps. You're going to have to give them years for mature branches, but in general, trees are particularly good at being self-balancing and regrowing their material. They heal rapidly, much like your own body. If you try to reattach torn limbs, you can literally see them fuse back together sometimes. Just like your bones, just like your cuts, trees can mend. And overall, the Central Texas canopy doesn't appear to be horribly degraded or damaged, even though it's been bad for people who have large limbs and large trees that have fallen individually on their property. So with all that in mind, here's some stuff you can do immediately, and I invite you to watch this video. Thanks. Hey, hello, Chris here, and we're going to look real quick at some of the devastation from the ice storm. It's Sunday today, and things just warmed up really quickly. And so we're going to go on a quick survey just to talk about like a couple of things that people can do that will keep them from having to destroy their broken tree matter. You can use it. So here we go. When you have tree damage, wait a week, wait a long while before you start cutting stuff. You know, sometimes it's really obvious, but there is a lot of potential. And, you know, we're going to work with it over a series of weeks to figure out what we need to clear, what we need to mulch, and what we could use for other purposes. Okay, so this is the famous loop of love. And a lot of stuff down here. But this tree, for instance, I'm going to prop up, and it's big. What is this, like probably 25 foot length here. And I will prop this span back together. I did this a few years ago, and we can't tell where the tree split. It was a similar situation, and it healed. So we're hoping for that. These branches came from this beloved large elm that we lost the entire canopy of. They will now be used to build berm behind this tree so that what's left of it can be as strong as possible. To heal. This is a pair. Here are these 2 trees. And the big one to the right, we lost completely, but the one to the left, we still have a fair amount of canopy. And so we'll use all this stuff that fell off for that purpose. Now, one other thing I really want to point out is that look at the condition of this limb. A lot of the limbs are extremely droughted from moss. And then because of the drought, that weakening is compounded. They don't have the resources to fight. So a silver lining, not even somewhat, a silver lining to this devastation a lot of people are feeling by all the broken branches, is that these were the limbs that were vulnerable to fall. So now they're down, and these remaining limbs, these remaining canopies, these remaining trees are going to now surge with some new light, and they will try to fill the gaps. It's amazing to watch trees repair themselves. I will go down here to show the tree that was propped up. Let me crawl under here a little bit. This is the one I propped up a few years ago, a cedar, and I'm reluctant to take away the support entirely, but the break was somewhere around here and twist. And it's honestly, I don't see any evidence of it really. So I'm kind of guessing where the bark is most worn. That's where it was, because it has healed up so well. And then the way I have it positioned on this support is it's just barely on one little piece of the tree's, the nub of a limb, a small skinny limb, not a very developed limb. So I think it's doing most of the work. There's quite a bit of biomass on this tree. There's much longer limbs here that it is holding up. I think it has repaired, and I think it took we didn't put a timer on it, but I think it was about 3.5 years. But I know it's not more than 5 to go from broken, like the one I showed a moment ago, to now basically holding itself up. And I just have this support here to make sure it does okay. All right, here's one I propped up already. As it gains moisture, as it gains tensile strength, here's where it's broken. And it will fuse back together. So my job now is to use the fulcrum of this fence post or garden barrier post to just continually raise it up higher. All right, so I'm gonna use this broad flat edge under the cradle of the branches somewhere in here and just cinch it up. Even though this thing is heavy, it's workable in like less than a minute. Oops. So not bad for one guy. And then the twist here, I'll keep working on. But this thing was pointed in one direction, the wrong direction, towards the ground. Now we can walk underneath again. Up the path, no problem. And we didn't cut the tree. And so as mentioned, this one should heal itself. In a couple more days, I'll come back and move it a little further. And you just use good sturdy post if you got it. Logs work too. Get your load bearing correctly, and then you can save all kinds of things. This is that 25 or so foot span of branch, and we just got it back. And all it took was paying a little bit of attention, giving a little bit of time to think about it, calming down, and then coming out here and doing about a minute's worth of CrossFit. It was pretty fun. With all of the busted up branches that people feel so awful about, that people feel are eyesores, these are actually really good for wildlife. I have noticed where I live, I've just been lucky enough to relocate to a forest, and the branches fell all around my little teeny house, and the deer are back, like within 20 feet of my windows. And so what we can do is, my neighbor Laurie was saying that they had some limbs fall a few years ago, and after weeks and weeks had gone by, they realized that stuff like this creates like a bird sanctuary and cover for wildlife. So there's some birds now, and so we can just sort of play with that a little bit and try to create some cover for the deer, because now there's more. The other silver lining here is that there's more ground cover for the animals to hide behind and buzz around, play around in. And they need that, There's not an animal that wants to be on open highway. They want to be in forest cover, like what you see here, but especially in the winter, it's extremely thin with all the leaves off the oak trees. And so again, I'll show a few pictures here, but I'm just going to take advantage now of this broken lumber, this tragedy of loss, and fix it up into cover for my my dear friends, my dear friends. Be right back. All right, that took about 10 minutes of labor. Here's where the debris was. Made two little chops, and then just moved it all to line this berm and path that we've installed. So again, my 84-year-old mother can just stroll around, but it was all strewn across the path. It seemed desperate and all that stuff, but really it's a great resource for building wildlife habitat into the property. So this is a deer walk through here. And we just want to merge and share the space and encourage them to thrive. Here's where a big broken green limb was, cedar limb, but now it's over here. It's kind of pretty. Again, another deer pathway up this hill. And so they can come back through. I left this sitting in the middle of the yard because it's okay. It kind of shields the hammock a little bit. And yeah. Trying to maintain the integrity of the space by leaving it alone, That's all you got to do, or you can do a little bit of directed use. Here's a temporary use. Put these limbs on the garden in front because they were covered in ice. And we wanted to harvest the melting ice into these deep soils that we've been building. So, all you got to do is pick them up and move them. It takes minutes. Fixing that ripped up area over there took 10 minutes. And now we have restored some beauty and potentiality just by putting things in a nice place. No chipping, no electricity. Okay, last but not least, this is pine straw. This is a bale of pine straw. Comes with a couple of things holding it all together. It's literally the needles of a longleaf pine from Georgia. As a conservation science biologist, I don't know if this is the greatest idea in terms of some sort of invasive species potentiality. But it's pretty hard for longleaf pine to grow in central Texas. Meanwhile, this material that I put around the base of this tree, and I'm just showing you, really literally shake, rattle, and spread the pine straw like you're making a nest or a thin blanket. And so this stuff is the best at retaining the moisture in the air and on the ground. And based on a bunch of that practical application of the science I've done, I am more than sure, I would say I'm not convinced, But I'm at the sure stage that tells me that this kind of triage, this kind of moisture containment for our deciduous trees in Central Texas is essential now. The ice really did indicate that our trees are weakened. They need help retaining moisture. And this is the best material and the easiest to work with. This week in Austin, these bales are only available at Geo Growers out in Dripping Springs, but major retailers carry them. Again, our friend John Dromgold, Natural Gardener. So you can go to the local guys first. If they don't have it, you can try your Home Depot and Lowe's. And what this is going to do, again, is keep the moisture close to the tree, closest to its vascular infrastructure, which the science shows and practical application shows that's the best way to secure the tree over the long term, is to really make sure that the trunk is able to maintain a moisture cycle, a healthy moisture cycle. You can do this anywhere. You can do this on a potted plant. You can do this in a mall parking lot or a business park. All you got to do is get the pine straw, spread it around. Not too thick. Help these trees.